infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
So on this episode of Into the Fray, I welcome Kaitlin on with me, and she has several different types of encounters that I am very much looking forward to listening to. Kaitlin, welcome on the show.
Thank you, Shannon.
Now, I don't know where you wanted to start. Usually I give everybody the option, if you wanted to start recent and go the other way, that's fine. If you wanted to start with your youngest memories of strange things occurring, we could also do it that way. What do you think we should do?
So I thought I would start from the youngest and work my way up till now. So I made a little bulletin board. The first thing I can remember was when I lived in Chico, California. And I guess I went back and forth from Chico to Paradise. I was living with my family and I was about 8 or 9 years old. My dad was like a farmer, but for marijuana. So he grew his plants in our front yard, and he was always really nervous that people would come and mess with them. So he made his bed outside. I decided I wanted to sleep out there with him because it sounded fun to me as a little girl. I was sleeping out there. Everything was going fine. I fell asleep. For some reason, late at night or early in the morning, I woke up and the first thing I looked at was the sky. And I was astonished at how magnificent the sky looked at that time. I could see the Milky Way. Really, it was my first time ever seeing the sky in all its glory. For some reason, I had never noticed it before that time. I remember I saw it, to me, it looked like a little tiny satellite going across the sky, and it caught my eye, so I kept following it across the sky. And it made it about halfway across the sky, and it was going behind this big, huge star that was just sitting there. And in my little girl brain, I thought, okay, the satellite has to come out the back side or front side of the star. And I kept waiting and waiting, and the satellite wasn't coming out from behind the other star. And I just kept watching it. And in my little girl mind, I thought, maybe it's a really, really big star. And from my perception, it's just taking a really long time for the satellite to get around it. So I just kept watching and waiting. Well, I don't know how much time passed, but all of a sudden, from that star, tons of little tiny satellite looking things went shooting off in all different directions, all different speeds. It was a really cool thing to see. I'm not quite sure what that was, but that's kind of the first thing I remember ever seeing at a young age that didn't make sense. I'm going to say that was in the late 90s or really early 2000s that I saw that. I kind of kept that to myself. I never told anybody about it. In my little kid mind, I didn't think it was really that significant. It didn't seem significant until later on in life when I realized that we don't even have that kind of technology. We just nothing about it made sense. I don't know. So that's the very first thing I remember.
That's a really unique one. I don't think I've ever heard one quite like that.
Yeah, my little girl mind, it was really neat to see. And I, even at 8 or 9 years old, I tried to make excuses for what it could be. there's just there's no explaining it, because let's say that little satellite was like an asteroid that hit a star. It still doesn't make sense how it could shoot off all these littler ones in different directions all at the same time. It didn't make sense.
Also, very interesting what your dad was doing. So, did he sleep out there armed?
He did. Yeah. So my dad is a really rugged man. He's just a different kind of man. And when you're little, you're just living life. You're not thinking about exactly what your parents are doing.
Right.
So to me at that age, that was just normal to me to be around that. But it was legal. He did have a prescription, so he wasn't doing it illegally.
Right. He could like grow a certain amount of plants, whatever it was.
Yeah, yes. And his main concern was he was always concerned somebody was going to come and mess it up or something. As a little girl, I just thought how fun that we get to sleep outside.
Heck yeah, camping time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, so really, as a little girl, that was probably the oddest thing that happened. All these things that I'm gonna say are all me looking back retrospectively, whatever the word is. At the time that they were happening, I didn't really understand what was happening. So I I grew up with a really rough family. Like I said, my dad was a really rough man. He was vulgar. He was kind of mean. I didn't get along with him well because I was a really soft-hearted little girl. I was I was just a really good little girl, and I didn't get along with him at all. On the other hand, my mom, I'm going to say she was a really good mom. She truly had love in her heart, but she she had a significant amount of problems, drug problems. She overdosed on many occasions in my life. It was just a really rough upbringing. And I learned a lot. I went through a lot. I feel like it built up characters in me that I wouldn't have otherwise. So a couple years later, after the seeing the whatever that satellite thing was in the sky, I'm just a little girl. I love the outdoors. I love being out in nature. That's literally all I did as a little girl was be out in nature. I would talk to the trees. I think Pocahontas helped with that. I I loved everything, bumblebees, dragonflies. Well, we lived in paradise and we lived right next to this. We lived on this road called Honey Run. And it's a little tiny mountainous road, really dangerous road. Car crashes happened all the time. Well, I was just a little girl and I was playing out in this huge field that had poppy seed flowers everywhere. It was just such a beautiful, magical place. And I was out there catching dragonflies and bumblebees with really thick gloves on. And off in the distance, you get little tiny glimpses of the road through the trees. So you can see cars passing by. Well, I was playing and I looked over, and all of a sudden I see a fire truck go by. Then I see an ambulance go by. Then I see cop cars go by, and I'm just catching tiny glimpses of them. Well, somewhere deep down in me, I don't know if it was my higher self or God, I'm not sure, but it was telling me that there was something wrong with my mom, and that's why I was seeing these ambulances and fire trucks and cop cars. So my heart dropped down into my gut and I started running home literally as fast as I could possibly run. I finally make it home and I see the ambulance men taking my mom out of my house on a gurney, and her head was tipped over and foam was running out of her mouth. And I, they took her to the hospital. That's the moral of the story, is that something told me that there was trouble with my mom. It told me, I mean, I had never had anything happen to me like that as a little girl, where something other than myself told me something was majorly wrong. So it was it was really shocking to me that that was even possible. I didn't know that we could get knowings like that. So that at my young age, let's say maybe 10, it really impacted my life on possibilities of people's knowings. And maybe if somebody hasn't experienced that, they don't quite understand it. But it's like you don't even question it. Your being, who you are, doesn't even question that knowing. It's just a fact. So that was really cool to experience, even though the circumstances weren't very great. Let's see. Or do you have any questions about that?
Just really quickly, because you
Yeah.
mentioned that your experience and your relationship with your dad wasn't the greatest. And I know that you said your mother was loving and she was a really good mom. She did have her problems, but that probably meant that, considering your relationship with your father, you and your mom must have been very, very close.
We were. Again, at your young age, you don't quite understand drugs and that lifestyle. I'm gonna say that with my dad, at some points in life, I truly didn't even know who he was. I remember as a little girl, he was gone for a long time, and then he came and popped back in my life, and I was probably like 5, and he told me to come give him a kiss, and I literally just started crying because I felt like I didn't know who this person was. Why is this man telling me to come give him a kiss? And it was just so uncomfortable. Even though my mom had all these crazy problems and made our life very chaotic and hectic, she did try to shelter me from a lot of it. And I was a very quiet, observant little girl. At the time, of course, I just didn't understand all of it. But as time went on, I have the privilege of looking back and understanding it more. And I see that she tried. She was just as lost as any other super lost person, but she really did try. So I don't know if we had some sort of connection. I'm sure we did, but I don't know. It just really opened my eyes on how, if if you do experience something like that, you should always listen to it. And that's been my experience through life, is always listen to whatever that voice is. I'm not sure what it is, but always listen to it. And I've had many occasions through life where this voice has told me, and I swear it's never been wrong. And I try to teach my daughter that as well. So after that experience with my mom, a couple years later, we moved to Idaho. My dad, like I said, he's kind of a mountain man, and he wanted to move in the mountains. So to me, it was like a culture shock. I went from California, a California girl, to Idaho. And not just anywhere in Idaho, but like the smallest little, most hillbilliest town you could ever imagine. He moved us 30 miles out into the mountains. We had no neighbors. Just the commute to school every day was a nightmare. But now that I'm older, I really appreciate Idaho, by the way. Okay, so we're living in Idaho. We live in very rural, huge mountains, pine trees, elk, deer. It's a really beautiful place. One day my mom picks me up from school. We're driving home, and like I said, it's a really mountainous road. There's really crazy corners where you have to go 10 miles an hour around it because it's so curved. We're driving home. It's a normal day. And all of a sudden, I scream at my mom that there's gonna be a deer around this corner and that she's going way too fast. So she kind of steps on her brakes because I scared her a little bit by just yelling this out. And right there, smack dab in our lane, is a deer stopped right in the middle of the road, just staring at us. And my mom looked at me like, how did you know there was a deer around that corner? Once again, I was young. I didn't really know how I knew it. Whatever this voice was just yelled that to me at that exact time. So I yelled it at my mom. So that was the next kind of cool thing that showed me to listen to this voice. I know it sounds really weird.
It's not weird at all. That's a really cool one. Now, with this voice, when you would hear it, I know it's a strange question and maybe it's not even answerable, but is it your own voice in your head or does it sound like someone else in your head screaming this
So
to you?
I have tried to understand that. To me, it kind of seems like myself, but maybe that's just because it's in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't really put a voice to it. I've tried. I've tried to say, does it sound like somebody else's voice or is it my own? I don't know. I haven't been able to pinpoint it, but to me, it seems like information that doesn't really have a voice just comes into my head. So that's kind of all I can explain it as.
No, that's a good explanation. Thank you.
Let's see. So, okay, after that, here's so far all these have happened with my mom, but there have been others that didn't happen with my mom. This next one was a really hard one for me because by this time I was in my young teenager years and I understood things a lot more. I understood my family a lot more. I understood the dynamics and how truly messed up it really was. This experience has affected me thus far. So, since we lived in the mountains and my family, wasn't super proper, my parents actually let me drive from the ages 10 on because they were very dysfunctional and there was no way they were going to get up and take me to school every morning. There was no way they were going to come pick me up every day. So, in their head, they thought, just let her drive. It'll make their life easier. So, at this time, I'm probably 11 and I am driving and I'm very comfortable with driving and I've been driving for a little while. So, on this day, it was a normal day, I guess. I noticed my mom is really messed up on pills, really messed up. Can barely talk, can't really walk straight. And at this time, I have a little brother that that's a baby, and I really love my little brother. My mom was like, she was slurring, but I'm not going to try to slur. She basically said that she was going to go meet this guy 30 miles down this mountainous road with cliffs and, you know, just scary roads. You have a river right there at the bottom of all the cliffs, and that's where we lived. So that's the road you have to drive. She said she was going to go meet this man and pick something up from him, which I'm sure was drugs or whatever. Well, she insisted that she was going to take my little brother. I knew she was too intoxicated to drive. So you know, first of all, when somebody is intoxicated like that, it's really hard to talk reason into them. I was begging her, begging, crying, begging her to leave my little brother here, that I didn't want him to go, that I knew she was intoxicated and it wasn't safe for her to take him. So she insisted that he go, no matter what I did. She was even kind of rude about it, like it didn't matter that she was intoxicated. It's her son, and she'll take him if she wants. So she takes him, and I just have this sick feeling. And in my heart and soul, I knew that something was very wrong. And my older brother was there, and my older brother, his car is the car that I always drove. So I went to my older brother and I said, Adam, something is seriously wrong. I need to go. I need to take your car and go. Well, he was just being a jerk of an older brother. And he's like, nope, not taking my car. Well, I started crying and I was like, Adam, I have to take the car. I have to go check on mom and Dylan. Something is wrong. And he continued to be a jerk. So I was just crying. I knew in my heart and soul that something was very wrong. I go outside and I'm crying to myself just because I knew something was wrong. And I see this truck that I've never seen before coming down the road. Well, I knew that it was my mom and my brother. I ran out there and I see my mom holding my little brother and they get out of the car. I literally dropped to my knees and just start crying and asking her what she did, what she did. Well, come to find out, she had drove my little brother off the cliff, probably a 60-foot cliff that led into the river. They went nose first and they hit this boulder. Thank God they hit the boulder because it actually stopped them from going into the river. Thank God my little brother wasn't seriously injured. But now that I look back on these experiences, it was something so wild, so special, so meaningful. It has really changed my perception of what life is really about. And I know that there's things in this world we just don't understand. I'm not sure we'll ever understand. So that was a pretty big one for me.
That is huge. Now, did that experience, I would have imagined I know the answer, but did that experience change anything for your mom? Was that a wake-up call in any way, shape, or form? At least to not take people with her?
No, unfortunately it wasn't. My mom has led such a disastrous life. I love her dearly. I really do. She just, I don't know what it was with her, but she she never learned, you know. She continued that behavior till her 50s. I yeah, I don't know why.
Now, what about your older brother Adam? Do you recall after them coming home in this stranger's truck because the car is totaled and they went off a cliff? Did he go, Kaitlin, how did you know that something was wrong with mom and Dylan?
So he didn't. I just remember looking on his face and it was like the most shocked face you could imagine. He was just so shocked. Really, honestly, we never really talked about it again because she lied. She lied to everybody and she said that there was a deer in the road and that she had to swerve to miss it. So everybody just kind of left it at that. But I knew and she knew deep down in our hearts that that was not the case. And years later, we had talked about it. And I had told her from my experience what had happened. And yeah, no, I can't talk with the rest of my family about any experiences that I've had. They're kind of closed-minded people, but I have been able to talk with my mom about a lot.
I mean, it is a very interesting and difficult, by the way, dynamic to say the least. And I mean, to compound off of that, you are a very tough young lady. And then now, obviously, you're a very tough young woman. So, congratulations on that, because I don't think not everybody can get out of that kind of situation unscathed later on with, just mental health that we all need to be just functioning adults. So, if your dad, I would imagine he essentially works from home, considering what he was doing at the time. It sounds like he would leave sometimes too. Was he around at that time? And if he was, and this is just conjecture on your part, but I'm interested to know this dynamic. If he had seen her that morning to go visit this man, would he have said, Dylan is staying home, you're messed up, you go see the guy by yourself?
Yes, so I he was not working at this time. So the reason we were able to move to Idaho is because he worked on oil rigs in California and he had really hurt himself and got a settlement. So that money was the money we were able to move to Idaho with. But the stipulations were he was disabled, so he couldn't work anymore. When I think back, I honestly don't know where he was at this time. To me, it feels like he should have been home. He would have told her, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And he would have been very forceful and rude about it even. So I honestly don't know where he was at this time.
Well, at
Um,
least he cared enough to have done that. Like, he would have done that.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I will say that in my younger years, he was gone because he was a very wild person out chasing tail and being a crazy man. In my older years, after we had my little brother, he did try to be more of a father. So I'll give him credit for that. And he would not have ever let her do that, ever.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to say that there are quite a few other times that I had wild intuitions that really saved me through my young adulthood, my teenager years, and even my child years that saved me from getting in the car with drunk drivers and and then the drunk driver severely crashed the car with my friend in the car. And my intuition just said, do not go with them. So I didn't. To this day, I call it intuition, but I don't truly know what it is. I I try to tell my daughter that it's a gift and the gift is from God or who else, I don't know where it's from, but if you have it, listen to it, nurture it, let it know that you hear it, and I think it will always be there for you and it won't disappoint if you listen to it. But on the other hand, I see my mom's life and I see that she never listens to it. She always goes against it. And I think it starts to fade. if you don't listen to it. So I think it's important for people to listen to whatever that is, which I'm not sure what you want to call it, but it's important. Let's see. So let me let me start this off by saying now I'm a young woman. I have a daughter at this point, and I just had a newborn baby son. I'm married. I have my own life. We've built a great life together, and we start going on these family camping trips every year. We go to the same exact spot every year, which is a place called Palisades, and it's a big, huge lake up in the mountains, and there's huge, gargantuous mountains surrounding you in every direction. It's just an absolutely beautiful, stunning place. Every year we've decided to make this our trip. We take our camper up there and we just go fishing and four-wheeler riding and dirt bike riding and hiking, and we have a blast. So this is hindsight. So far, we've done 4 camping trips there. And every year, something odd has happened every time. The very first time we went camping at this place, okay, let me tell you what it looks like. So it's it's in a big, huge valley. You've got trees of all kinds everywhere around you. We're camped right next to a little creek that's probably a foot deep, 10 feet wide. So a nice little creek right next to us. And then the creek, it goes right into this lake. And we're right next to the lake and right next to the creek. We've got our camper set up in this little tiny open area that is completely surrounded by trees. It's like a tree wall all the way around you. This first time that we went, I had just had my son. So he is a newborn baby. Well, not newborn, but little, maybe 5 months old. My family wants to go out and go fishing, but I didn't really want to take him out there. So I told everybody, just go and I'll stay here with him. So I stayed there by myself. It was an absolutely beautiful sunny day. So I had opened all the camper windows. I had opened the door. I also brought my orchid flower to set on my table just because it was pretty. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, this little hummingbird comes into the camper because it sees the orchid flower. And then it sees me and it flies out another window, which I thought was really cool. I finally got my son to take a nap. So he's sleeping at this point, and I'm just relaxing in heaven and just enjoying the day. Well, all of a sudden, I start to hear a baby crying. So I am really not understanding because there's absolutely no one around us. We're literally camping there by ourselves. There's no one. I come out of my camper and I try to follow the baby crying sound, and it leads me to the very end of my camper. I walk behind my camper, and about 5 feet away, there's the wall of trees. Well, I notice that the baby crying is coming from that line of trees. I get closer, and I'm really trying to look in there really hard to see what could be making this baby crying noise. I get closer, about a foot away, the baby crying stops. So I back up a little bit. Baby crying starts again. So I'm like, what on earth? How come I can hear the crying coming from right here? I should be able to see what is doing this. Well, I back up multiple times, let's say 3 times, and then I get closer again. Baby crying stops. Back up. Baby crying starts. So all of a sudden, I get this really sick feeling that this is dangerous. Whatever this is dangerous. So I actually ended up going back into my camper, locking all the doors, shutting all the windows again, and just staying in there. My family finally got back. I told them what had happened. My husband kind of blows things off a little bit. He's never had any kind of experience in his life, so he doesn't take it as seriously as I feel like it should be taken, but that's okay. I told my mom, and my mom actually told me that she was fishing out there. She had walked away from my family to go fishing and find her own little special spot to fish. She said that she was with all the dogs. All of a sudden, she notices this big, huge, dark shadow in the trees, that it had blocked out any of the light that you could see coming through those parts of the trees. Well, she got scared. She noticed at that moment that all the dogs had left her, which is abnormal. So all the dogs had left her there by herself. She sees this big, huge, dark shadow moving through the trees. And every time it's moving, it's blocking out the sunlight for a very big portion of area. She gets horribly scared. She keeps telling herself not to run because all she could think of is a predator, and you're not supposed to run from predators. So she keeps trying to keep herself calm as she's walking back to where everybody else is. So when she got back to camp, she was telling me this story. We talked about what had happened, thought it was really weird, and we kind of just left it at that. That camping trip was over. Nothing else happened during that camping trip. So that was just something that had happened on one of these camping trips. The next year, we go to the same exact spot because we really love this spot. This time, though, we bring our own camper, and my brother-in-law brings his camper. So there's two families camping there at this time. Let's see. So this was a really wild. I'm trying to remember the very first thing that happened. Okay, so we are camping. We're again right next to this creek. On the other side of this creek, it goes up into a sheer mountain. So we're on the side of the creek where it's a flat ground, and then on the other side of the creek, it's a sheer, big, huge mountain. So me and my mom are sitting at the camp with the children. My brother-in-law and his family had left on a four-wheeler ride. My husband had went and took his boat to the lake to spend the day fishing. My husband, by the way, he is kind of blind. If he's not wearing his glasses, he really has a hard time seeing. Well, he had broke his glasses, so he didn't have them on this day. It was evening, and he was just getting back from fishing. So he's coming down the mountain and coming into the campsite. Well, me and my mom are sitting there just fine. And all of a sudden, I hear my husband screaming like I've never heard him scream before, that there's a bear on the other side of the creek. He screams it over and over, get the kids, there's a bear, get the kids. So, your blood pressure shoots through the roof and you frantically start trying to get your kids. Well, after we get the kids, he looks back and there's nothing there. There's nothing there. His brother-in-law, or his brother, my brother-in-law, made him feel really stupid about saying that there was a bear. But he kept saying, I swear there was something bent down at the creek, right across the creek from you guys. I saw it. It was bent down at the creek right there. And I swear it was a bear. So that made everybody on edge. Then me and my mom decided that we wanted to go on a four-wheeler ride because my brother-in-law was back. So it was kind of our turn to go on a four-wheeler ride. We were having a great time going up the mountains. It's just such a beautiful area. I've got pictures too that I could show you if you wanted to post them. If not, that's fine. So we're getting to the very peak of this mountain, and there is no one out there. It's in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. All of a sudden, I see my mom in front of me, and she stopped, and she's yelling for me to stop, and she's pointing up to this hill that's right next to us. So I stop and I look up there, and there's this ball of light sitting right above this pine tree. And I'd actually like to send you the little video that I took, Shannon, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
It's a really good video. It's of a white ball of light sitting, let's say, 10 feet above this pine tree. And it's just sitting there. I don't know what it's doing, but you can kind of see the light in it fluttering and kind of moving. I just, at that time, I had no idea what it was. At that time in my life, I wasn't into or supernatural or all this stuff. I wasn't into it. I had no idea about it. I didn't want anything to do with it. So when I saw this thing, I was pretty astonished. And it's just sitting there. In the video you could see tons of dragonflies flying all around it, and then all of a sudden it starts to go. It starts to just fly above the pine trees, and it works its way up, 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 and then an airplane actually comes and flies pretty darn close. So I don't know how people in the airplane didn't see it. It was a cool experience on this day.
Now, I always like to ask this during the recording. Is this something that I'd be able to share with folks so they can see the video as well?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I don't know. I didn't know what to think about it at that time. I just thought, how crazy. And this all happened in one crazy, crazy day. So we had hauled butt back to the campsite to show my brother-in-law and my husband this video of this orb. And, for some reason, I don't know why people don't take it seriously, even when you have video of what you're showing them. But they kind of just said cool and left it at that. Being the person that experienced it, I thought it was so cool. I thought I had never seen anything like that. So I just thought it was so cool. And they really didn't think it was that cool, I guess. And they're just like, they left it at that. The night goes on. We're all sitting around the fire. Evening is coming. The sun's going down. We're all sitting around the fire, I think, having s'mores. And I start to feel really odd. I start to have this anxiety that didn't make sense. I was surrounded by my family. There was no reason for me to all of a sudden get this outlandish anxiety. So my brother-in-law and his family decided that they were going to go to bed. It was probably like 8:30 at this point. My brother-in-law had saw that my anxiety was crazy high. And he said he went into his camper, came back out with a little pistol, and he said, "Here, give me this back tomorrow." Well, that made me feel a little better about the anxiety that I was having, but For some reason, I was still really scared, which is just not normal for me. I am a very outdoorsy person. I grew up in Idaho. I've elk hunted, deer hunted, moose hunted. I've been out in the wild my whole life. I This was very abnormal. And at this time, I'm surrounded by men, women, my children. There was no reason for me to be this scared. But the scare that I had was directed at a certain area, which was where my husband said he saw that bear on the other side of the creek where that sheer mountain cliff was. So they decided to go to bed. Okay. Me and my mom sat up and we like to watch the stars at night. I absolutely love watching the stars. So my husband decides to go to bed, and that just leaves me and my mom. I've got this pistol, and I also have this big, huge, crazy flashlight that my husband bought. You know, he's the type of guy that's always trying to buy the best flashlight for some reason. It's a really weird thing to buy, but he had this flashlight that was so bright. It basically lit up half that mountain when I would shine it up there. At this point, it's dark and it's really dark. The whole family's asleep except for me and my mom. We're sitting out there. You know how when your eyes get used to the dark and then you turn on a light, it kind of messes with your vision. So with my anxiety, I keep shining this light over there on this mountain. And my mom keeps getting upset with me. She's like, Kaitlin, you keep messing up my vision every time you turn on that light. And then my eyes have to get used to the dark again. And I'm like, Mom, I'm sorry. I'm I'm scared. For some reason, I feel like there's something over there. She's like, nah. So I am sitting there and I start to hear rocks fall from this sheer mountain cliff. And I keep hearing little rocks fall down. And it's not that loud because the creek sound kind of mutes a lot of the noise. So I keep hearing rocks fall and I'll shine the light up there. Nothing. I can't see anything over there. I can see the landscape, but I can't see anything that's might be making those rocks fall. Again, rocks fall. I shine the light. My mom gets mad at me. That actually goes on for like 10 minutes of these rocks falling and me shining my light up there. Well, I'll be damned. All of a sudden, I can hear. So hopefully people have heard this before. You can actually hear rocks moving in the water. It sounds muted, you know, not like you're clacking two rocks together in the air, but you can hear it in the water. And I kept hearing rocks under the water in the creek being stepped on. I keep shining this light over there. I'm not seeing anything, literally nothing. And then I'll hear another rock starting to move. I shine the light, nothing. I tell my mom, Mom, there is something coming down this mountain, and I can hear it walking in the creek. And she's like, yeah, I can hear it too. So by this time, I'm telling you, my anxiety is so high and I'm jumping at every little move. There goes a period of time, like 10 minutes, where I don't hear the rocks moving. I don't hear rocks falling. And me and my mom are just sitting there. I'm trying not to shine this stupid flashlight. And I'm literally sitting there with my gun in my hand, just waiting. Okay, so where I'm sitting right in front of the camper on the very back side. So the, let's see, the right, the very right side of the camper, which is at the very end. And I'm sitting on a four-wheeler right there at the end. All of a sudden, I hear this thump, 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 thump. Four very distinct, the heaviest footsteps I have ever felt in my life. They literally shook the foundation of the ground. The four-wheeler that I was sitting on shook, the whole thing. My mom was like 20 feet away from me. My brain could not keep up with what was happening fast enough. So I didn't really register what was happening in my brain because it happened so fast. I turn around to see if my mom was running for some reason. In my head, I thought maybe the running was from her, but it wasn't. I look back and she's in the exact same spot that she was. This thing that ran, it literally ran so close to me where it could have brushed against me if it wanted to. And by the time my brain registered that something on 2 feet had just ran right next to me and shook the foundation, was stopped. It only took 4 huge footsteps, and it stopped over here where our flatbed trailer was that was holding all of our four-wheelers. So when my brain registered that, I brought that light up as fast as I could and turned it on. And on the other side of this flatbed camper or trailer that our four-wheelers were on, I see this huge dark shadow fall to the ground. It fell to the ground like extremely fast and like liquid, kind of. It fell to the ground like liquid. I'm telling you, my brain wasn't used to things like this. So I wasn't registering things in my brain like I should be. I didn't know about Bigfoot or this or that. I I didn't really know what it could be over there. And when it melted to the ground, basically, it it melted to the ground so that it wouldn't be seen and so it could hide at the same height as this flatbed trailer with the four-wheelers on it. My mom has started walking toward me at this time. And literally all I said was, we need to get in the camper. And my legs were like jello. And she kind of helped hold me to get to the camper. My whole family was asleep at that point. I didn't want to make a big, huge scene. I went in the camper. I locked the doors. We did not say a word, not one word. And we went to our beds. And I remember just laying there in my own mind, knowing that whatever this thing was probably going to look at me through windows. At that point, I didn't know what it was. The next day, I stayed out for quite some time thinking about this thing, scared, didn't want to wake my family up. Woke up the next morning, did not leave the camper at all because of how frightened I was. My husband even came in the camper and he's like, honey, we need to start packing up the campsite. I didn't want to tell him about what had happened because, you know, he doesn't take to it very well. He kind of is just like, blah, blah. You probably didn't see this, that. But I did tell him because I didn't want to leave the camper. So I told him that whatever this thing was there last night. And it ran right next to me to where it could have touched me. And it stayed in our camp. Yeah, I don't know. After the fact, I'm assuming it was a Bigfoot experience. Like I said, I grew up in Idaho, so I know what animals sound like that are quadrupeds. I know I know what animals sound like, and this was 2 feet, and it took four, probably 10-foot steps to get to where it was, and it only took 4 steps. And the amount of area that it crossed was a huge area, maybe 50, 60 feet area in 4 steps. I didn't go check for footprints. I didn't know to do that. I I don't know. I wish I knew things then that I know now, and I definitely would have went above and beyond to find out exactly what it was.
All right, so a few questions on what you've covered so far.
Yeah.
That first trip,
Yes.
I would hazard to say that not only was it drawn in by your very young son, he was crying, I'm sure, as babies do. He was only, like 5 months old at the time. I would say not only was this thing drawn in by that, but it seems like it then tried to mimic him in some way to get you out into the woods. Would you say that the cry that whatever it was making was in fact similar to your son's cry in some way, shape, or form?
Absolutely. And listen, I even did research afterwards because people told me, "Oh, bobcats make or mountain lion or bobcats make crying noises." Well, yes, they do, but they sound like a feline. They have a very distinctive feline sound. This sounded like a baby. There was no cat sound to it at all. And it did draw me out. I see, this is all retrospectively. It was calling me out for sure. It
Now, this is dark to think about, but I mean, and again, this is not an answerable question, but especially since you are sensitive, obviously, whether it was retrospectively or at the time, what do you think might have happened if you had followed that cry into the woods?
honestly, I have thought about this a lot. I mean, I've thought about it for years. For the last 4 years, it has overtaken my life. I don't know what it would have done because on this last experience where it ran right by me, it could have just grabbed me and left. It really could have. It was so close to me. It could have just grabbed me and ran. And there was nothing my mom could have done about it. So I feel like if it had any bad intentions like that, it had every opportunity to do it.
Well, and that's another
Thank God it didn't.
yeah, and that's another big question I have that you circled back to is why did it run in at you guys like that? Why did it come in so close to you? Is that their way of, I mean, I really firmly believe that we are their entertainment. Maybe it was entertaining itself by making this baby cry, and you go to the wood line, then you back up, and then you go to the wood line and you back up, and it's fun for them. And that's their way of tapping on the glass, you know, that we might, as kids, we would do that to things in aquariums, right? But it running in like that, do you think that's the same situation? It's just testing to see what you're going to do. It's just having some fun.
So you want to know what creeps me about that situation is it took it took probably an hour altogether to very strategically, sneakily sneak up to the back of the camper where I was at. Okay. It took its time. It even made sure to make some noises so I knew it was over there, but I could not find it no matter what. It was in no hurry to get right over there. It very strategically got there. And then I think it sat behind the camper waiting for the very right moment to come as close to me as it possibly could.
And were
Um,
you looking now? I know all this happens very fast, and you were very good about explaining that. And many other people, it's the same way. The way they move
yeah,
is just you can't even explain how fast it is. But were
no,
you? It could be a twofold thing. Were you looking the other way when it came super
yes,
super close?
yes,
Okay,
yes. My back was to it,
okay,
and it ran by like very fast right by my back. And the only reason I knew it was there was because of how heavy the footstep was.
wow.
It literally shook the foundation. The whole four-wheeler I was sitting on shook. And I literally could not comprehend it fast enough in my brain to understand what was going on. My brain said, did my mom just run? But then I thought, wait, she can't shake the whole foundation like that. I don't know what his intentions were. I don't know if it just wanted me to know it was there. I really don't know what it was doing. I'm so thankful it didn't touch me because that just the thought of that petrifies me, and I appreciate it not touching me. But where it ran to, where that flatbed trailer was, there was a wall of brush, thick, thick, thick brush. And there's no way it could have went through that without making the brush move. So I know for damn sure it stayed right there where that flatbed trailer was, where it fell to the ground. It didn't go anywhere. It had nowhere else to go. And it was pretty freaky at that moment. And once again, my intuition was telling me something is seriously wrong. I felt so scared for no reason. And that's never happened to me before, ever.
I have to tell you, Kaitlin, that whole situation is what Will Jevning would call an underwear changing moment because even though you didn't
Yes,
see anything, that is really, really terrifying. And it was just screwing with you, essentially. It knew
it really was.
exactly when to run right by you. Now, when it went over to the flatbed and sank down liquid, as you say, which is a great description, by the way, was there, even if you wanted to, if you had shined this massive flashlight over there, would there have been anything to show your mom, or you just knew it's time to boogie on out of here and get in the camper?
So when I shined the light over there, I did see its silhouette.
Yeah.
I did see this gargantuous, huge silhouette, but it was very, very dark still. Even with the light on it, it was a very black silhouette. So I couldn't really make out certain features of it, but it did look humanoid shaped, standing up. And then right when I got the light on it, it basically melted down to hide behind that flatbed camper. So even though I couldn't see what its face looked like and whatnot, I definitely know it was an upright humanoid figure,
Are
a
you
very heavy one.
are you pretty relieved that you didn't see its face?
I don't know. I don't know. I in my mind I try to make up what it should look like. I kind of wish I knew what it looked like, but to me it was just a very dark silhouette. It has messed with me over these last years. I have went camping after, and I will say my anxiety is a lot higher. I don't enjoy it as much, especially at night. I don't know. It did change my life. It really did.
Do you have a guess at all on the height? Did you get a glimpse at all of before it made its transition to the ground on how
I
tall this thing
did.
was?
I'm gonna say the flatbed camper is probably 2 feet high, and the flatbed camper was, I'm gonna say, right under its knees. So it was pretty damn tall, maybe seven, 7 to 8 feet.
How ironic is it that your husband without his glasses. He cannot
Right.
see well. He breaks his
Right.
glasses at this trip, and then he sees what he's assuming is a bear crouched down at the creek, when in fact it could have
Yes.
likely have been, he could have been like, I just saw freaking Bigfoot, guys.
Yep. Yep. No, and listen, he really cares about what his brother thinks, right? And since his brother made fun of him, he kind of dropped it all
Mm-hmm.
and didn't talk about it again. Well, afterwards, after we got home and I had told him what had happened to me, I said, I think that that bear you saw was the Bigfoot over there. And he agreed. He agreed. And I'm telling you, he doesn't agree with me on anything like that. So that says something pretty big.
So there must have been something strange about this quote unquote bear that he realized right away. But I mean,
Yes.
but knowing that his brother was there, he said, "There's a bear. Get the kids inside."
Yes. Yes. And I'm telling you, I've never heard my husband like that. So scared before, ever. We've been married 11 years since we were little teenagers. I have never heard him sound like that. So distraught and terrified for our children. So it terrified me. And the second time he looked over there, it was gone. It was just gone.
Have you
I don't
have
know.
you kind of pressed him on? Hey, I'm kind of getting the hint that you definitely don't think that was a bear. Why is that?
So he didn't have much to explain about it except for that it was bent down at the creek.
Yeah.
So I think it was maybe getting a drink of water. I know this is the terrible part. My children literally play at that creek the whole camping trip. The whole camping trip. They're kids. They love the water. That's what they do. And that really messed with me. I didn't want to let them go near the water anymore. I made sure I sat out there at every second watching them. I didn't want them to be vulnerable to whatever the hell this was.
How far was that from you guys where you were sitting to where this quote unquote bear was at the creek? Can you guess on that distance?
60 feet at the most. At the most. So him coming into the camp with his truck and boat, he's getting close to the camp, and that's when he sees it. So he was probably further away, and that would probably be around 60 feet. But where we were camped at was probably 20 to 30 feet away from the creek and the opposite side of the creek. So I was in the camper when he got out and started frantically trying to get the kids. I'm not sure how many times he looked over there. I just know it really scared him. It really scared him. I don't see a bear coming into a loud camp while everybody's out there. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't.
Well, and also both times that this thing is really, really interacting with, especially you, by the way, is when there's no males like directly in the mix, it seems.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's watching the whole time when the dudes are gone.
I'm going to have to show you pictures, okay? A year later, I went there with one of my good friends, and he wanted to hike up the mountain that this thing came down from. We hiked up there, and I'll be damned if it's not the perfect spying spot for our camp.
Mm.
I even have a picture of the camp from up there on the mountain. And we found structures up there. We found dead elk. It was just crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And you're right, it did wait for the opportune moments when nobody else was around, which I find very creepy.
so creepy. It is really
Oh
so
my
creepy when you
gosh.
think about it. Like your description of these things is giving me chills. I mean, okay, so with these family trips, you've had 4 of them, and obviously it sounds like you've been
Yes.
back for other reasons, but were these trips in the same month every year?
They were pretty close to the same months because in Idaho, we only have a short summer, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you only have 2 to 3 months max of camping out in the sun. So yes, they were all pretty close to the same times. It was, let's see, the one this happened in was August.
It's just it's another level. And I've been present for baby cries purposely being played over a speaker situation and something coming in, and it didn't do a baby cry, it did whoops. But I'm telling you, when you, especially, you had an actual baby there, and that just, it
Yeah.
makes my freaking skin crawl. And to think of,
Yes.
what was this thing trying to do, or was it trying to do anything? Are we just its entertainment? Is it tapping on the glass? But who wants to find out? Nope.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And even even during that time, it strategically waited till everybody left.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was so creepy, that one. That one was really creepy because the baby cry was so on point. I would get a foot away. And I'm telling you, I was looking so hard into those bushes. I could not see anything, and I was really trying to see something. It really messed with me. This whole thing really messed with me. It put me on a road to find out as much as I possibly can about the unknown in this world. It put a drive in me that I've never had with anything else in my life. And that's the truth. I've spent days, hours, months, years now researching, trying to correlate with other people's experiences, finding differences and common ground of what's happened to other people. And it really is life changing. I've told my husband on numerous occasions that somewhere deep down inside me wishes that he would have an experience of some sort so that he can relate with
Mm-hmm.
with what it does to you as a person, to know, to not wonder, but to know there's things in this world that we're not told about, that I don't know, that people lie and I don't believe you on purpose. And I've told my husband, he knows me so well. You know, I've never just come to him and told him, "Oh, I had this crazy, unbelievable experience. Believe me." You know, I have truly really wanted him to understand, and other people, that it's life-changing for the people that experience it. It's life-changing. And I listen to all these people on your show and other shows. To a normal person, their experience would sound outlandish. But when you truly know there's more in this world, you sympathize and you're like, wow, that what that person must deal with in their head for going through what they've been through is hard. It's hard. So after this Bigfoot thing, like I said, it took me down a road of research. It opened my eyes to a lot, and I went down a road in life that I've never really went down. I started opening myself up to different things like meditation and trying to explore out of body and listening to teachers like Tom Campbell. That took me down a crazy road. After the Bigfoot experience, I deeply got into meditation. I wanted to master going out of body. which I haven't mastered it, but I have made breakthroughs. That was life changing. Just to know that the human body and mind could dabble with things like that is astonishing to me. I don't know, because part of me is Christian, I don't know whether it's the right way to go or not right way to go. So I do struggle with that, which is terrible. And I believe the meditation is maybe what led me to my next experience. I'm not sure if that is true, but I'm not sure, but it could be. I feel like maybe the meditation opened something up in me, maybe made me open to other things happening. So on this experience, it was probably 5 months, 6 months after the Bigfoot experience. It was nighttime. I had fallen asleep like any other night. I I wake up in the middle of the night to go pee. I drink water a lot, so I have to go pee a lot, unfortunately. I wake up this night, I sit up on my bed, and at this time my bedroom was in a basement. So in the basement, it's an older house, so it doesn't have the windows that you're supposed to have in a basement so you can escape if there's a fire. It has these little tiny horrid windows that are like 6 inches wide. So I'm sleeping, I wake up, I look down toward the end of my bed, and at the end of my bed, I have a full-size dresser with a full-size dresser mirror. I notice a light about, let's say, 8 feet away from me is a light, a ball of light, sitting right in front of the dresser mirror, and it's about the size of a grapefruit. It it's sitting very still, but inside of it, there's two colors. There's neon blue and neon purple. And and inside of this ball of light, the two colors are like slowly swirling together like smoke. Very slowly, but the two colors are swirling together like if somebody were to blow smoke in the air and it tumbles and twirls. That's what it's doing inside this ball of light. So I'm still sitting up. I keep blinking my eyes and rubbing my eyes over and over, thinking that maybe there's something wrong with my eye. I keep blinking, I keep rubbing my eyes. I I'm squinting, and all of a sudden I notice that this ball of light has a reflection in the mirror. So it's definitely there, because now I notice that it has a reflection. I don't know if the ball of light was looking at itself in the mirror. I don't know if it was looking at me. I don't know what it was doing, but my room was pitch black. And I also noticed that the ball of light with these colors in it was bright, but it didn't light up anything in the room around it. It didn't light up the wall. It didn't light up the actual dresser, which I don't understand how it could do that, but it didn't light up anything. So I'm still sitting here. I'm very intently looking at this thing. I'm watching the swirls swirl together. All of a sudden, it shoots straight toward me, and it's coming toward my face, which normal scared me. And I went to hit it like a bug, like I don't defensive, and brought my hand up and I watched my hand go right through it, which scared me even more. So I threw myself backwards into my bed, covered my head as fast as I could with my blanket, and I just sat there scared for a second. And by the time I brought my blankets down, it was gone. I don't know if it went through the wall. I don't know if it just disappeared. I'm not sure. But that also was a really life-changing moment for me as well.
I mean, what do you think that was? Does this house have a history of any haunting type activity, anything like that? Does anybody else, anyone else in the house have activity at all?
Yes, my mom has had some really scary experiences. My bedroom is no longer in the basement. Hers is. So she has definitely had scary things happen down there. I've never heard of anybody dying in this house, or so I don't know about any of that. It is an older house, so who really knows? I'm not sure what that ball of light was. I I think it was beautiful. The colors in it, I've heard tons of orb encounters now, and I've never hear people say that they were those colors. It's like always red or white or even just blue, but this was blue and purple. It was actually really pretty. I don't know why it shot at me like that because it scared me, but I don't know what it was. I've wondered for a long time.
I mean, if you're okay sharing it, what sorts of, and you don't have to go into detail if you don't want to, or just omit the whole thing, but what sorts of experiences has your mom had down there? You said they were scary for her.
They are very scary for her. So she thinks that they have to do with UFO encounters, alien encounters. And Shannon, what is just really terrible, and I feel really terrible about it, is here I am professing these things that have happened to me, wanting people to believe me, right? Well, my mom tells me about all this crazy stuff that's happened to her, and I actually find myself a lot of the time having a hard time believing it, even though I know she's not a liar. I know she's never just made up stories. It's just sick how that happens, how it's hard to believe. She says that she's been attacked by like nano nano alien nanotechnology that makes her hurt. She sees like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, on the TV screen when there's no signal and it's really, I don't know what that's called, blurry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she says that she sees something with no shape that's like blurry. I don't know how to explain
Like
it.
cloaked somehow.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. She says she sees something down there like that. She's actually had an enormous amount of things happen to her. She could probably have a show all on her own doing that, trying to tell people about that. But it seems really outlandish to a lot of people. So she doesn't really like to share it that often. I don't know if it's the house or if it's just us having experiences. There was another time I was sleeping in my bed, but this was upstairs. I fall asleep listening to you in my headphones. I was sleeping in my bed. I started hearing this dog breath growl. It's like I hear it in my ears, even though I have my headphones in. And the sound starts at the end of my bed and then works its way down to my ear. It's like, and it gets closer and closer to my ear. So I was thinking, is it the show? Is it the headphones in my ears? So I rip out the headphones in my ears in a panic. The sound still comes right into my ear and does one last growl breath. I could not see anything around me. There was nothing. For some reason, it just did that all the way into my ear. I don't know what it was. Scared me. Just a weird experience. I don't really know how to explain it. Another time, and this was just recent, me and my husband were laying in bed. My son just had a birthday, and we had birthday balloons, you know, with helium. My son brought the helium balloon into our room, and I noticed that for like 5 days the helium balloon was in the same spot. Well, I laid down, I close my eyes, and I start to hear this. I look over, and this balloon was bouncing along the roof all the way over to me. Okay. It stopped right above me. And I thought in my head, oh gosh, just whatever this is, leave me the hell alone. I close my eyes. All of a sudden, the balloon hits me. It had, from the roof, it had come all the way down and hit me. I literally jumped out of my skin and screamed, and my husband was like, "What? What?" And I told him, I'm like, this freaking balloon just hopped all the way across the roof to where I'm at and then came down and hit me. That was just another weird thing. I don't really know how to explain these things. I really don't. I just know that I feel like I don't even know what I feel like about it. Sometimes I don't want weird things to be happening because it just feels like too much. Or who who's going to believe you about a stupid balloon story, or this freaky dog voice coming and growling right in your ear, or an orb in your bedroom? It's hard to tell people. That's why I really, really, really appreciate what you're doing with your show. I was telling my mom yesterday that it's so refreshing to have a platform where you can literally tell your life experiences. It's not just like one, oh, I saw Bigfoot, or I don't know, I saw a dog man. You make it to where people can kind of give you a glimpse of their life, which I think is a really special thing. And I really appreciate your platform.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you being willing to come on. I absolutely love doing this. And it was born out of very simple as anybody else. I don't want to be alone because I've seen weird stuff. So
Seriously.
no, thank you so much. That's why I cannot understand, or I can put myself in somebody's shoes, but unless you're there, you don't know exactly how it feels. That's why when you, like, we're telling that whole Bigfoot coming in, and I can place myself there and I can imagine how that would be. And immediately the word that comes up is nope and creepy and things like that. But okay, so your mom, actually, before I go there, do you think, again, another unanswerable question, but do you think, like, it sounds like that was a sentient ball of light that you had an encounter with, right? With
Absolutely.
these beautiful lights inside of it.
Absolutely.
And it flies at your face. I mean, that's very interactive. Then
Yes.
you have your mother, who has, the best she can term it, and she could be spot on. We don't know. The best she can term it is alien encounters. Do you think
Yes.
that these are all different things, or do you think, in the dog breath and all of that, or do you think it's one thing that likes to just screw with you guys and it can manifest in different ways?
Okay, so you know how it's been said that multiple generations in the same family can have things happen?
Absolutely.
So I have wondered, could it be that? Or is it just so random? I don't know. I know that when my mom has had orb experiences. She told me about her orb experiences before I even thought about any of this kind of stuff. And yet again, I brushed it off my shoulder like anybody else that had never experienced anything would do. We have a big family, and me and her are the only ones that are Rh negative blood. I don't know if that's a factor. I've heard a lot of people talk about that. I don't know if it's the factor of running in the family line. I'm not really sure. I speculate a lot. I ask a lot of questions. I I don't know if it's all the same entity or whatever you want to call it, or if we're just kind of maybe open-minded and see things differently than other people. I I'm not really sure, but I do have a lot of questions about that.
Yeah, I think it was Nick Redfern. He's got many books, to say the least. He's prolific. I think he has an entire book that has to do with Rh negative blood. I think it's called Bloodline of the Gods, something like that. I'll have to
Yeah,
look that up.
yeah,
Don't quote me on that. But so she was having experiences prior to living in this house that you're speaking about.
yes, absolutely.
Uh,
Oh, she's had experiences for years now.
has she ever described what I guess we would term a classic abduction experience?
She does think she's been abducted. She thinks she has repressed memories. She thinks that they give her false memories. She thinks that they make her see different things than other people see. Like me and her could be standing outside looking at the moon, right? And she'll be like, Caitlin, are you seeing this? Are you seeing this? And I'm like, no, I'm not seeing that. I just see the moon. And then she'll describe what she's seeing, and it's something completely different than what I'm seeing. She has said she's seen like a draconian type of creature. She thinks there might be some holograms. It all sounds really crazy, really crazy. But I can tell you that in her mind, she 100% believes it. 100%. And, she's a part of a lot of these groups of people that have had experiences. And there are a big handful of people that have also had similar experiences to hers. So it makes her feel not so lonely in that regard. I, so after I had the Bigfoot and the orb experiences, it really opened up my eyes to a lot. I invested in a really, really expensive pair, top of the line, not night vision goggles. My husband got them for me for my birthday. They're they're amazing. I've seen things up in space that are just crazy, and I have lots of video. I've seen, I, to me, from down here, they just look like big, huge balls of light. And I have it on video, this huge ball of light going across the sky, shooting out little tiny baby balls of light. I have that on video. I just have lasers going across the skies. So I know for a fact that there are things out in space that are unexplainable. She claims to have a lot going on with all that. So, and she truly believes it.
Well, I guarantee if she came on, there's always, especially with those types of shows, there's something, because there is a darker aspect a lot of times to why. That's why I brought up quote unquote classic abduction experience, because there's nothing really classic about it. Because when somebody starts to go, the broad stroke is, I think I've been visited by or taken by quote unquote aliens, whatever that means, whatever they are, that's another can of worms,
Right.
but they'll say aliens, right? But the long of it is that there will be some of the most unique little things. They're not little, but what I'm saying. The unique little things. Yeah, the details, the devil's in the details, because those little details that people will tell me on the show is what will get someone reaching out and going, oh my God, I thought that I know I've said this before, but it's true. Okay, I thought it was the only one. I thought it was the only one. I was having these crazy experiences that nobody believed until I heard that one little detail that just, it stood out to them, and it validated things for them.
Absolutely. And even based on what she's told me, and she has no one to talk to, so she really dumps it on me, and I try to be a good daughter and listen to all of it. But I have even heard things on your show that seem to correlate with things that she's experiencing, and it has not been all great for her. It really has been torturous. It's been painful. It's she has sleepless night after sleepless night after sleepless night. Really feels like it's torture
Oh,
from
I'm really sorry to
whatever
hear
this
that.
is.
I don't like hearing that, because, it's one thing to be like, oh, here's a cool story and it's creepy and it's, all fun.
Right.
And that is because you talked about having your life changed after the Bigfoot situation, but you can also leave the woods and not be in the woods and be scared that a Bigfoot's going to run up and try to grab you or your kids or something. Whereas she feels like essentially a prisoner in her own home. And that's when it's not cool. It's not funny. It's not interesting. And I
100%.
I feel bad for her. And I hope that she knows that she's not alone and she's not crazy in that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. It's past that point of being interesting and all this other stuff. It is it's sad to watch her in her everyday life try to cope with all this stuff that she's having to go through, that nobody can help her with, that nobody really can sympathize with except for a very few who are also experiencing that. I mean, she's tried everything. She has I'm telling you, she has tried everything. Holy water, exorcisms, blah blah blah, this, that, the other. She's tried it. And so far, nothing really seems to help.
Can I just say just real quick before I lose this point, because you just mentioned holy water and exorcisms, but at the same breath, we're talking about quote unquote aliens. That is so smart of her to do that, because let's face it, and I don't care what expert out there wants to come at anybody that says this, we do not know what we're dealing with. So I think it's so smart for her to just be like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to cover all of the bases. And, I applaud her for that.
Yeah, oh, I couldn't agree more. I've had countless conversations with her about how we don't know what any of this is, any of it that either of us have experienced. And, there's a lot of correlation between new age alien UFO type stuff and demon stuff. And I know people don't like to correlate the two, but there is a lot that correlates. And you can't just rule it out. No, they're aliens. You don't know that. You really don't. Nobody knows that. And anybody that claims to know that is full of shit. We're all speculating, all of us, every single one of us on this earth that have or have not experienced, we are all just speculating and going off of experiences, but that doesn't tell us the full story of anything.
Kaitlin, what about your kids? Do they say, oh, there was the hat man in my room last night? Is there any quote unquote imaginary friends or anything that they experience?
So far, So far, my daughter, who's 11, she has told me that she's had weird things happen, things in her room move. And this was from a young age. So, when she was at her young age, I didn't know anything about anything. So it, she was coming to me with her own experiences without knowing if I had had anything happen. She came to me and told me her doorknob was shaking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and she would open it and nobody would be there. She's told me about things moving in her room, but all by themselves while she's watching it. She's told me that she has seen dark shadows at night move around. And y- I never would say, oh, it's just blah, blah, blah. I know how that feels. So I literally always tell her, yeah, honey, there's things in this life that we really don't know about. And things like that do and can happen to people.
What about your son?
So so far, my son, he kind of still sleeps with me, so he doesn't really get scared at night. He hasn't told me about anything specific yet. So I don't know.
But he gets scared at night, which could be just, you're a kid, you get scared at night, which is understandable. But
Right.
so far, isn't that interesting then? Because you have your mother, you have you, and then your daughter. So far, it's kind of following this gender line and the familial line, of course.
Absolutely. And I have thought about that over and over again. I I I think about this stuff every single day. It's a daily thought of mine of what all this is, what is going on. How come it's happening to me? Why doesn't it happen to my husband? I've told my husband, I pray, literally, I pray to God that someday something he can't explain happens to him just so he can kind of relate with what's happened with me. So far, my wish has not come true, but I hope it does.
The Rh negative blood, I mean, let's go down that path for just a moment since you brought it up. Are either of your kids Rh negative?
I believe they are. I believe my daughter is. So this is interesting. I called the hospital and I had both my children at this hospital. I called and I said, "Hi, I am wanting to figure out what blood type my children are." The lady said, "Oh, we don't do that here. We don't tell you what the baby's blood is or whatever." And then I said, "I'm RHO negative." She says, "Oh, let me go find out." So that told me right there, they literally only keep track of RHO negative blood types. They do not keep track of any other blood type, which I found really odd. And yes, I do believe my daughter is.
I mean, there's just so many tracks to go down with this, right? And you've already mentioned this. You're like, your mind, it's just every day just going like, why, how, what?
Yeah.
I mean, it could be any or all of these things.
Yep. Yes. It life is a really trippy thing. Looking back at my life from my mind, what it is now, I can pick out little things, even like the intuition thing that that aren't normal, that most people don't really experience. There, people talk about intuition. My intuition in my life has been outlandishly accurate. And I try to tell my daughter that it has saved me in so many different ways. I don't know where I'd be at in life if this little voice wouldn't have told me not to do this or to do this or to go here. And I don't know if it all is correlated, if it's all separate. I'd like to think that it's all correlated somehow, but it's just who knows?
Are you worried if you keep going down the path of, trying to execute an OBE or astral projection, that it'll get a spotlight shine more on you, and then you would in turn have these more terrifying experiences in your home like your mom does?
So, yes, I am going to say yes. So, growing up believing in the Christian way, my husband would always be like, "Oh, you're opening yourself up to this, that, and the other." And I would be like, "Oh, hush, you don't know anything." I have actually stopped messing around with that. At the time where this was all taking place, I was dabbling in it. I have definitely stepped back from that. And I kind of wanted to see if things would continue to happen, or is it just based off of me opening myself up? So I got to say that even after I stepped back, things still seem to happen. The dog growling in my ear happened after I stepped away from that. The balloon thing happened after I stepped away from that. I don't know if this is just me or if it's real, but a lot of the time, feel like there's something around me, especially at nighttime. I am terrified of the dark. I always sleep with lights on, which bugs my whole family. But I don't know if that's just because I'm a wussy or if there really is something around me. I don't know. But
When
I
did you start
do
sleeping with the
feel
lights on?
I feel like I've always carried a night terror with me. And I feel like I've always needed and had to have lights on. So even my daughter, and this is terrible as a mom. So my daughter likes to sleep in pitch black. She'll every night, she's like, "Oh, shut this light off. I can't sleep. It's shining in my eyes." And unfortunately, I told her that she should not sleep with the all the lights off. It's just, it's, I don't like it. I I told her there should always be even a tiny light, some type of light should be on because ah, maybe I've listened to too many shows, but I do feel like there's things around us that I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the night terror thing is about. I really don't. I feel like I've had it for a long time. I can't explain it. I've tried to figure it out, and it's very prominent.
Well, maybe this is me recording too many shows, and I'm not trying to be dramatic, but your mom mentions that she feels like she has suppressed memories, false memories, implanted memories. Do you think there's a chance that you are in that camp and you don't even know it?
I have thought about that, Shannon, and it is a possibility. I told you that my life was a rough upbringing, and I do have a lot of memories from my younger life that are just gone. They're gone. I literally remember very, very few things far and in between. I don't know if that's because of my upbringing, and I've also thought maybe there are suppressed memories in there. I've thought about seeking help for that in some way, but Idaho is really they're really far behind from the rest of the world, that there's not very many people that don't believe in this kind of stuff. Everybody's Mormon or, they just don't, they're not open to this kind of stuff. So there's not a lot of options to seek help. And that's a lot of my mom's problem as well. She has looked for Indian chiefs because there are Indian tribes around here that might be able to help her. She really has looked for help, but there's just not much around here.
Before I forget this point as well, your very young UFO sighting where it went behind the this massive star and then all these little ones shoot out from it. It sounds like the one that you just shared most recently, that same situation is still going on. You still see that.
I do, but okay, so I do still see things like that. I will say though, after these last couple years of all this stuff happening, I've kind of pulled back, like uh maybe gotten too scared. So I've pulled back. I don't want to see as much. I don't go out there like I used to and look for things because now I know they're there and I don't know if I want to continue looking for things.
How often do you talk about this stuff out loud with anybody?
Not often. You know, I spend a lot of days listening to my mom, but I kind of just let her get it off of her chest because I know she doesn't have anybody to talk to. And I don't really put all of my stuff onto her because I know she's mentally, physically going through a lot. So I really don't have anybody to talk to. Honestly, I try to tell people, like I tried to tell my little brother, the one that was in the car wreck. He's now 21. I tried to tell him and his girlfriend about it, and they kind of just like normal, blow it off, laugh, you know, which doesn't make you feel very good when you're truly trying to tell somebody about it. So really I don't talk about it. I have been on a couple other podcasts, but those were very specific things. It was never anything to be able to share my life experience. So this is really the first time that I've ever been able to talk about all this.
Well, I think it's important to do that because without the whole picture, there's certain pieces that bleed into another. Not all the time, but
Absolutely.
sometimes for sure.
Absolutely. And that is kind of what would frustrate me about any other podcast is you don't get to show the picture. You just get to tell little tiny glimpses of here and there, but it doesn't show you a picture. And I think the whole picture is really important, especially when you're trying to maybe help somebody else who has had these weird things happen, or you've heard similar things from other people and you're like, "Oh yeah, me too. Me too." So you don't feel alone. I think it's really important to get it out. And I'm glad your platform's here so people can get it out. I really am.
I felt really bad about your mom. I didn't realize that she had that many experiences where she's just constantly talking about this kind of thing and actively trying to, and I applaud her. She's actively trying to talk to other people about this and do whatever she can. I mean, actively in the home to try to essentially cleanse it's a very religious word, but it's a good word to
Absolutely.
use. Just to cleanse whatever
Absolutely.
the hell it is. So, I
Yep.
don't want to trigger anybody, but cleanse is the best way to say that. But, if
You're right.
if she, and it's no pressure, of course, she could email me or whatever if she wanted to, and I could attempt to try to put her in touch with, it might just be the same, kind of people that she's already speaking to if she wanted to come on and just get it all out so that it's out in the ether to see if other maybe even someone that I'm not aware of could come forward to help her. I don't know. But just to put that out to you.
I'm sure she would love to do that. I think at this point, I mean, what is there to lose for her? If And you're right, it could reach the right person. You never know. Even if it is someone none of us know of.
Exactly.
Maybe they can relate with her in some way. I'm sure she would love to be able to get it off her chest.
Yeah, and you can just put that out to her and just don't say another word about it and let it marinate. And if she wants to, fine. And if she doesn't, of course, that's fine.
Yeah.
When you're not comfortable in your own home and you're really thinking that something dark has its eyeballs on you, I can't even imagine that feeling. That's where me trying to put myself in those shoes, I'm like, I would not. I love this stuff, and I would love to have more experiences myself, but I definitely have my hard lines, and that would be one of them.
No, listen, Shannon, you're absolutely right. So when people are, even me, I honestly am even guilty of it. Like, oh, I want to have an experience like this, or I want to experience this. Watching her and watching what it was able to do in her life truly, honestly, has scared me and also set me back in saying, whoa, I don't know if I want to mess with this, any of this.
Right.
She herself has even told me, Kaitlin, don't don't dabble in this because whatever I did to open myself up to this, it is not worth it. It's torture.
Well, and here's the thing.
It's torture.
If you guys weren't, and I would hazard to say that yes, we already know your mother is Rh negative and so are you. You are sensitive. I would hazard to say she's probably sensitive as well. And
Absolutely.
if you if you took all of that out, if you weren't Rh negative, that may not have anything to do with it. I just keep bringing it up because it's of note. It's worthy to note. Okay, so
Yes.
but take that out, and maybe you're just sensitive. You and your mom are sensitive people. You're gifted, as people like to say, which your mom would go, screw gifted, get this thing out of me. But you know what I mean? If that has anything to do with it,
Right.
if you were not, I mean, do you think then that you would still try to, what am I trying to say? Would you still try to go down the road of, and not that I'm saying, and not that you're saying that meditation is dark or evil and of the devil or anything
Right.
like that, but if you, like, if your mom wasn't going through this stuff, would you go, well, yeah, I want to go down that road still. I want to play. I want to dabble. I want to see what's doing, because you do have this drive. You admitted it. This
Right.
Bigfoot stuff lit a fire under you. But are you going, you know what?
Absolutely.
I'm Rh negative. So is my mom. I'm sensitive. So is my mom. My daughter has mentioned she's seeing things. So that's what's kind of got your hands thrown up, you know?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think after listening and sympathizing with what she's experienced, I'm not sure I want to dabble in any of that.
Because I
It's
think
not
that if,
worth it.
when you're gifted already, and you even just to do simple meditation, I think it would be similar to someone like me who's about as sensitive as a rock. I go and I get what, like Joe Rogan did. He went and got DMT or whatever, and he's like, I'm a
Yep.
receiver, and things are I'm gonna see entities, and I'm gonna have discussions with. And I'm not saying that I still haven't listened to his full. I don't think that he has said that, but other people have said that they have,
Yep.
essentially turned themselves into receivers. Then you got eyeballs on you, and you're talking with this and that, and entities from other planes or whatever the hell they're saying. I mean, you essentially you skip that step. You don't need that stuff. You're already sensitive.
Yeah.
So I think even simple meditation for someone like you is just like,
Really opens you up.
yeah, it's like that badass flashlight that your husband like bought to, see everything across a whole valley.
Right.
You just turned the light
Right.
on.
No, I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And like I mentioned earlier, that I don't know if I can correlate the meditation
Right.
with things that have happened, but it feels like
Right.
that was the case. It really does. And I would question that for a long time, but I have listened to so many shows where people say that they have experienced that as well, that they have experienced that when they started meditating and really opening themselves up more, it seemed to open them up more to weird things happening. So I think they're correlated. I know people don't like to say that, but I feel that they are.
Do you wonder if even just you and you finally like spitting it all out in one sitting is going to shine the light on you a little bit more now?
It probably will. I feel like me even thinking about it a lot of the times puts the feel in the air that I can feel anyways. maybe other people don't have that feeling, but I think God really blessed me with good antenna feelers for some things. And I've always been really good at feeling people out, knowing their deep, dark heart and soul. They're my husband to the 11 years later says my wife's always right, and not in a cocky, ignorant way, like in a weird intuition way. Like we'll meet somebody and I'll tell my husband that man's a child molester. He'll be like, no, you don't know that. Don't go around saying that. I'm like, honey, there's something really wrong with this person, and they're a child molester. Bam, we find out they're a full-blown child molester. Stuff like that. Weird feelers that I have made damn sure to pay attention to in my life. And that whatever you want to call that is always right. I don't know. I don't know where I was getting at with that.
But to build off of that, then isn't it funny then that, and this may play into the phenomena itself, planting seeds of guilt or doubt? Isn't it funny then that your own mom in your own house is saying, I have these experiences, and you admitted that you question that. You don't know if you can believe everything that she is saying. But then you can go to frickin' Walmart and go, that dude is a child molester and needs some things cut off of his body.
Right. But you know what the sick part about that is that I believe the reason why I do question her about could that be real has been the normal human upbringing in America of, oh, that can't be real. That's conspiracy theory. That's this, that. I know that it's my own mind messing with me, trying to put doubt in her reality. It's a weird mind thing. And it seems like when I do, which is so often, open up my mind to what's really going on, I feel like it plays off of that. It feels my fear. It's really, really weird. I don't know what the hell it is.
I will say, though, that sentient ball of light, because, you had this really benign description of it at first, and then it flies at your face. And to me, that's not really that friendly. I wouldn't like that. I mean, you tried to swat at it, and then it terrified you. So, you know, it's going into that gray area.
I've struggled with that, Shannon. I really have, because, you hear things like, oh, it's your guardian angel or this, that, the other. Really, nobody knows what it is. To me, it seemed like it was looking at itself in the mirror. Okay. It seemed like it was looking at itself in the mirror. Why? I don't know. I've thought, did it come out of the mirror? Because I've heard weird things like that too. I don't know. And then I feel this is how I feel. I don't know this for a fact. I feel like it was looking at itself in the mirror. It turned around and I saw the swirls moving. It turned around and saw that I was staring at it, and maybe it shocked it. I don't know. So it decided to fly toward me. I don't really know. I thought maybe it was just messing with me, wanted to see my reactions. It's hard to say what its intentions were. I also believe that wasn't a very nice thing for it to do. It did scare me. At that time, it was very scary. I had never seen something like that before in my room, so it was all foreign. I have so many questions. I really do. I have so many questions that there's no answers to. And the best feeling in the world, instead of getting the answer, the next best thing is to hear that other people have experienced it as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why we seek validation, is because there are no real answers. It makes life hard.
So after the cleansings that your mother will do, is it quiet for a while for her?
Let me see. Mom, after you've done cleansings, your sage cleansings, your holy water cleansings, whatever you've done, is there a period of time where it calms down or does it just stay the same?
I feel millions of these things leave my body, but some always remain. I never get them all out.
Okay, so she says that she still feels them in her body, the nano, whatever they are. So she does feel a lot of them leave, but she can feel that not all of them leave. So they do still stick around.
Where they are, they're intelligent.
And she truly believes that they're in intelligence. Even though they're nano and there seems to be millions upon millions, they're intelligent somehow, or they're being directed by some type of intelligence.
Well, no matter what they are, they're extremely invasive, and just make sure that tell her I'm very sorry that she's going through all that.
I will. I'll
it's
tell her.
it's one thing to be like, oh, there's subject matter for the podcast, and then there's people's lives are truly affected by this stuff, and even beyond that, I mean, just your own stories. You've had terrifying events. You've had scary things. I mean, that ball of light was kind of an a-hole. I'm sorry. Like, that wasn't a nice thing to do. And that could be tied in with what your mom's going through. It could be, or it could be something completely separate. We just do not know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the sad part about what she's experienced is she's a grandma. She's definitely does better in her older years than she did in her younger years. She's doing good in life, and it's sad that they've taken away her ability to live a fully happy life. She has contemplated suicide, which is horrifying to say, but that's how bad it's been for her. That's how tormenting it's been. It's been years of no sleep every night. It's been years of body pain. And it's not like she just says these things. She does research herself every single day. She has videos. She's got all kinds of crazy stuff that she swears and she 100% believes is her experience. And for somebody to want to commit suicide because that's how bad it is just sick. It's horrifying.
Well, and
whatever that is sick.
You know how I was likening the Bigfoot essentially tapping on the glass, because we're their entertainment.
Yep.
You know what really pisses me off is thinking of whatever your mom's going through and maybe what's also looking at you. Is it for this higher purpose? How some people say, well, it's part of a, if they have memories of a hybrid child or they're taking things from me versus, well, I have suppressed memories. I do or don't want to know, but also if it's not this bigger picture situation, is it just these things, whatever they are, tapping on the glass? We're just the entertain. Do they visit your mom, on a weekly, nightly, whatever it is basis, just to, as you say, the word torment? Do they do that just to mess with her?
That is so funny you mentioned that because so many people have told her there's a learning experience in this. It's supposed to make you grow as a more spiritual person, blah, 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 shit. None of it's ever been helpful. That can't be true. What could this torture possibly be doing for her well-being?
Right.
It's like,
where's the light and love? There's no light. They're all like light and love. I don't see it. When is that going to happen?
Right. Absolutely. No, unfortunately, going through this with her, being here with her, you definitely learn the BS from stuff that might actually be helpful.
Right.
You have to sift through so much because there's so much crap out there. It's tough. It really is tough. It's tough for her. I hate that this is her reality. I really do. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I think that if it is some type of higher power entity, whatever, they're rotten. That's what they are.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, you're both very tough ladies. Can I just say that? Don't, tell your mom, don't let them win. And she's not. She's sticking it out. We gotta stick the old middle finger essentially up at him and just be like, no, you're not gonna get me.
Yeah, that's what she's had to do. She's had to do that. I think it would be a fabulous idea for her to come on the show, seek anyone who has anything to relate with her, possibly any kind of help. I know for a fact she's open. She's desperate, as a matter of fact.
Well, we can certainly make that happen. So if I can go through your email if you want. You saw how easy it was just to schedule, and then we just hop on. So it's not
so easy.
a big thing, and then she doesn't have to stress about it. But let her think about it, and we can definitely figure something out, because I do not like to hear that at all. But Kaitlin, thank you a million times over. It's been a really wonderful conversation with you, and I definitely want to keep in touch.
Yeah, no, thank you, Shannon. Seriously, for what you do, for going above and beyond for all of us, for being the voice when everybody needs it. Thank you.
Before I cue Electus, I would like to welcome my new patrons over at patreon.com. Charles Smoke, MJ Parlier, and Lisa. If you'd like to support a show that you love and get a ton of bonus content for yourself, head to patreon.com/INTO THE FRAY or Apple Podcasts Premium.